Hey, hello friends, welcome to my channel. In this Azure Devops tutorial series, today let's discuss about retention policies in Azure Devops, or how do you retain pipeline runs in Azure Devops. Okay, so this is a very interesting and important topic, but an easier one. Okay, the reason I'm making this video is because quite a lot of people are unaware this retention or retain policies actually exist, and they end up in losing critical important pipeline runs which might be beneficial in their project activities. Okay, so now let's see how and where you can view that retention or retain level policies. Okay, so there are three different types of policies, three different areas where you can retain. One is at the project level, and another one is at the pipeline level, and another one is at the custom another one is the custom settings. Okay, so at the project level you can go to this project settings and make the changes. At the pipeline level, currently you don't have a option at the YAML in the UI, but you can provide API related information in your YAML to actually give those retain information in your YAML pipeline, but it is available in the classic UI pipeline. Similarly, if you want to provide any customized policies also, you can provide that. Okay, first let's look at project settings. Okay, so under project settings you can see under pipelines we have something called settings. Once I go here, you can see a tab called retention policy. So this is a very straightforward pointers which will help you understand what's actually retained. So days to keep artifacts, symbols and attachments, that is for 30 days. Days to keep your pipeline runs, 30 days. Days to keep your pull request runs, 10 days. Number of recent runs to retain per pipeline, 3 days. Okay, so this is a very straightforward pointers which is self-explanatory to make you understand what are actually maintained, and this is something by default at the project level. Okay, this is something by default which is defaultly provided at the project level. Okay, so this is quite easier one. And moving on, let's actually see when and where can we actually retain that pipeline runs. Okay, before going to that, I want to show something other important stuffs as well. So there are something called release retention. Okay, there is something called release retention where you can retain the release related policies. Okay, release related information also. We haven't reached the release pipeline related topics in our playlist, but going forward I will cover that. But for now, you just keep in mind how we can retain the release related retention policies as well. And at the last you have something called test also. Test retention policies where you can retain like how long you wanna keep your test runs, test results and attachments and other stuffs. Okay, so this is a very high level UI related information about how do you retain the pipelines and other test runs at the project level. Now let's go at the pipeline level and see where and how we can retain that. Okay, so I came to my pipelines. I am planning to pick one of the pipeline runs. Okay, so once I go into this pipeline, okay, there is an option you can actually retain the pipeline runs. Usually when people retain that runs is because if they feel it is very much useful for their debugging or production related activities, usually people retain it manually. Okay, so let me pick this pipeline run and show you, which might be very beneficial for you. So in this pipeline run, I am clicking on these three dots, and you can see there are two things. One is retain and view retention releases. Before going to retain, I will show you what is actually present in view retention releases. So under retention releases, these are few custom level settings that is provided at your project and organization level. For example, this is a branch level policy. This is pipeline retention level policies. Okay, these are kind of custom policies which actually override your default policies. Okay, so if you have provided any custom rules, that will actually override your default policies. Okay, so if you can also view retention settings here, okay, which will go to the previous page whatever we actually opened. Okay, so branch policy means on the main branch forever. This means whatever changes that are happening at the main branch, okay, that will be retained, and those pipeline runs will be retained by default. Okay, and similarly pipeline retained as a recent run of this pipeline forever. Okay, this is very straightforward, but how do you actually provide some manual custom rules also? We can see that. So once you click on three dots, you saw there is an option called retain, right? So once I click on retain, which means I am manually overriding this pipeline run to be retained forever. So now if I go to this three dots, there is an option to stop retaining run. So we can disable whatever retain we provided manually. In order to actually verify if that is correctly applied, you can go to your retention leases option again and verify. You can see this is manually retained forever. So this is my username and it is manually retained forever. Okay, this way you can actually manually retain your pipeline runs. Okay, so this is a very easy and important one, because I have seen many people in real time where they actually end up losing one of the critical or important runs which has actually passed. Okay, people work on multiple areas, right? So when they come and look at their runs after some time, their successful run might have gone. Okay, so they end up a lot of time in debugging and identifying why this has failed and how do I compare it with the last or previous successful runs. Okay, so in those kind of situations, retention policies are very much important. So in order to explain this further, I have made a note of few critical points which actually helps you to understand why retention policies are important. Okay, so I have listed a few pointers here. Let's look at all these pointers one by one to understand why do we need to retain pipeline runs. Okay, first one is compliance and auditing. Okay, retaining key builds ensures you can prove what was built and what was tested and what was released. Okay, that's why retaining key builds are very much important. Okay, this is actually very important in regulated industries like finance, healthcare, defense, and whatever field that you are working on. Okay, so during auditing and all, auditors may ask like which code went into production on this date. So those kind of questions might come up. So that is why it is actually important in compliance and auditing steps. Next one is troubleshooting and debugging. Okay, if a release causes issues, you need logs, artifacts and test results from the related build, right? So that is why retaining pipelines or releases is very much important. Okay, so retaining pipeline runs helps you to reproduce bugs, compare previous successful runs, investigate why something actually broke. Okay, these kind of help retaining the pipeline runs can provide, which will simplify your troubleshooting and debugging process. And next we have something called artifact reuse. Okay, some builds produce reusable artifacts like NuGet packages, compiled binaries. On this kind of reusable artifacts it will be providing, which might be beneficial for our successive runs. Okay, if those builds are deleted, downstream pipelines or environments may break. Okay, that is why sometimes retaining the releases and pipeline runs are very much important. Okay, as I said, releases actually dependent on it, because if a release references a deleted build, it may fail to deploy or lose the traceability. Okay, assume that you have not retained a release, for some reason it is went off, but there might be few deployment activities which is actually depending on those releases, right? So in those kind of situation, your deployment also will fail and you will lose traceability of your deployment activities as well. Okay, so that is why retaining or retention on the release level is also important. All right, so and the next step is the manual bookmarks keep forever. This is something which we saw earlier, right? So sometimes you might need to mark a specific run as historically very important. For example, your first release, or your milestone version, or your hotfix build, or your successful run. Those in this kind of situation, you can manually retain those pipeline runs, which might be very much important. Okay, retaining it actually ensures it won't be auto deleted by the default policy. Okay, and finally, the critical one is team communication and visibility. Okay, team, the reason I have included this point is because team often needs to reference past runs during retrospective or planning. Okay, for example, building a pipeline, or why the pipeline took so long, so why deployment frequently failed. So whenever you are trying to investigate failures, or troubleshoot, whenever you are troubleshooting a failures, it might be very much important during your retrospection or planning session to actually understand why it actually happened. So that's why retaining these builds or pipeline runs might be very much beneficial for you. Okay, so what passed last week, or what artifacts were deployed on this previous sprint. Okay, these kind of smaller points can actually help you in smoothly running a project. So that's why retention might be very much important. Okay, so without retention, what will happen? Just a recap. Okay, without retention, your logs, artifacts, your test results will get deleted. Now releases may break or become untraceable. Your team loses visibility and accountability. Debugging production issues become much harder. Okay, so there are many more reasons like this, but you can actually use this manually retain option for an individual developer use, but it is not recommended for at a project level. Okay, so yeah, this is how you can actually retain your pipeline runs, or retain your releases, retain your test results at a project level. All right, so yeah, that's all what I want to cover as part of this video, guys. I hope you liked this video and found it really useful. If you like this video, please subscribe and follow my channel. Thank you.